Welcome to the month of March. I've got plenty I'm excited to get to talking about. We've got RPGs, we've got third-person shooters, we've even got horror. While I've been completely swamped with work this month, I still believe I want to keep up this monthly tradition of diving deep into specific little things that make these games special or make them really suck. I'm always happy to share my thoughts, and I hope that my brief looks into each of these games can help motivate you to pick up something new very soon, or give you some much-needed insight into games that you're curious about. Click that subscribe button if you want. Let's get right into it. This is a classic. I feel like despite this game being so old, it really did resonate with me almost immediately as I picked it up for the first time roughly a year ago. I never beat it since I lost the original save file, but I was so close to the end of the game. The other week I was thinking about how nice it would be to somehow get Earthbound working again, and so now I've got it on my iPhone ready to play anytime, anywhere. The reason I'm playing this game all the way from the beginning again with no issues is because I really missed this world. Its quirkiness, its dialogue, its characters, and its really unsettling moments. This game is downright creepy sometimes. You'd have moments of calm and then suddenly, boom. This game is incredibly good at switching its tone very drastically at a moment's notice, aided by a layer of absurdism and dry humor that makes the world of Earthbound feel like a caricature. Why does this help the tone, though? Because you can never expect what'll happen next. It also introduces this uncomfortable tone throughout where people don't talk and act like they should, sometimes speaking in sentence fragments or almost nonsense. Themes that are intended for characters that are joyful and hopeful end up sounding slightly off-putting at the same time. Usually I skip a lot of content in large RPG games like these, but I found myself almost entirely interested in what everyone had to say in every corner of the world. Everyone I spoke to dug me deeper into this crazy universe, all while providing more questions than answers, more confusion than assertion. I found myself invested in recurring characters along the journey, even if they don't have anything but the exact same line over and over, interrupt my gameplay at random to take pictures of me, or turn on me and then ask for forgiveness. It's all part of the experience. You're meant to enjoy Earthbound on its own terms, and if you embrace what it has to offer and what it forces on you that other games wouldn't dare to force on you, you will think that this is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Even the combat at first seems like it would be boring, but then it becomes so flavorful when you realize that your health doesn't get subtracted, it goes down. Meaning, if you get hit by a devastating attack, but defeat your enemy before your HP creeps down to 0, you're still safe. This also means that if you're fast enough, you can actually heal yourself up before you hit 0 too. I found myself scrambling to reach the life up ability when a character was mortally wounded. The combat is actually really tricky in this game since not only does it rely on proper decision making, but at a certain point you start mashing the A button to skip through text, which carries over into the combat system. You find yourself skipping over proper decision making by accidentally mashing A too often, and then, well, you're dead. And that's because you were impatient. It's bound to happen since combat is basically the other half of this game. You'll run into enemies a lot. Sometimes you'll run into enemies 20 times in one area and it'll still be cool because the music is awesome, the enemies look cool, and the background effects make a psychedelic trip seem like a cakewalk in comparison. Those easy enemies, though, will occasionally get very, very lucky and unexpectedly knock you down despite being your level. Some of them have these hidden weaknesses and strengths that start to show themselves if you fight the same enemy over and over again, and if you're bold enough to try all your different moves. Like the evil mushrooms reverse your controls with a certain attack of theirs, and you can avoid that if you get lucky and they don't use their special attack. Or you can deal with the reverse controls after the fight is over, but you need to use psi points, which are essentially special power points, to reverse the affliction after the fight is over. In my first playthrough, I got stuck on a boss that seemed genuinely impossible to defeat. After running towards it for an hour or so, I remembered that the game had actually hinted at its weakness about 3 times before I encountered the boss. Using its weakness, the boss went from the hardest fight in the game to the easiest fight in the game, and I felt so fulfilled knowing that I eventually remembered that the boss has this weakness. I found it peculiar how the combat in Earthbound is all about decision making, while the world itself provides pretty much no decisions. Some characters even prompt you for a yes or no answer for it just to have the same outcome every time. There's no multiple endings or story branches. The only element of choice the player has here is how to most effectively win their fight. RPGs can be really annoying when players have to restart from a save point without their earned XP and stats, but Earthbound is really keen on keeping the player moving forward. Don't get me wrong, dying in a fight is still a big waste of time, but at least you don't lose any XP that you've earned since you last saved. You just spawn back where you last saved, and that's really fair, although you will probably have to visit the hospital to get your group revived, which takes a bit of time. It's always worth it. It's kind of crazy how many game mechanics are baked into straight up exploring the world and doing mundane things like shopping, resting at hotels, making new and weird friends, visiting your party members at the hospital. Things that all take time and effort to go through, but they really help in building the world. Sometimes the game's systems can be quite tedious, like having money go directly into your ATM over time with a kind of allowance system where your dad gives you money over time depending on enemies you've defeated. But at the same time, the ATM gives you more reasons to explore the cities that you venture through. Naturally, you'll pass by NPCs that you may or may not be interested in talking to, or you'll find a building that'll pique your interest. While you have to go out of your way to withdraw your money, you can tell that it was put in the game on purpose, not to be annoying, but to incentivize you to actually take a look at the map and go on a short walk around town. You even play mainly as the leader of the group, who has a very realistic weakness. He gets homesick, and if you neglect calling your mom for a while, he will refuse to attack on some turns with text saying Ness is thinking of home or Ness feels homesick, which can really come in at the worst times if you don't make the tiny habit of just calling mom after saving your game with dad, or withdrawing some cash from an ATM nearby. Again, something that could be thought of as an annoying gimmick, but without it, you'd have less incentive to visit shops and hotels and interact with the other systems you have at your disposal while you're there. Despite the game being released 10 years before I was born, it feels timeless. And playing it over 30 years later, it feels no different than many indie games that we have today, with clever, witty writing, interesting world building and gameplay, pixel art that just pops out of the screen if you really care about pixels popping out of the screen, and an unforgettable vibe that just sticks with you, which is why I just had to pick it up again. Earthbound went on to be one of the biggest inspirations for Undertale, which released 10 years ago. Holy shit, I am getting old. With direct parallels between the two games, there are disturbing and unsettling vibes, wacky characters, and fourth wall breaks all over. They're both different games that invoke the same emotions, and I feel like that unsettling nature of both of them are what stuck with me the most at the end of the day. We need more games that have that unique spark of subtle creepiness. Games like Majora's Mask with its quiet, empty moments, Dark Souls with its quiet, empty... Maybe I just like games that are quiet and empty, but I don't know why they make me feel so uncomfortable in my chair too. I don't know why I like feeling that uncomfortableness. Maybe I should go for a walk in the woods dead of night. No, I shouldn't, and you shouldn't either. Just play Earthbound instead. You won't regret it. This month I also played not one, but two Resident Evil games to wash out the bitter taste of Resident Evil 8's DLC, which I spoke a bit about in my last video, which you should watch right after subscribing. Resident Evil 2 Remake was my proper introduction to good Resident Evil. I'd played the remake to Resident Evil 1, and I really enjoyed it. It reminded me of a longer and more difficult Luigi's Mansion, and while that sounds like an insult, I genuinely love Luigi's Mansion, and I plan on playing Resident Evil 1 again very soon. But 2 is where I really started loving the series. It's a modern recreation of a classic I never got the chance to play, over-the-shoulder controls, shaky hands, and an incredible art direction. The game looks realistic, but almost each area of the game is so memorable and beautifully decorated. Not to mention that this game is actually sort of terrifying. I mean, duh, it's a horror game. But I played the game on hardcore, and I definitely recommend playing the game this way. You have limited saves, so not only do you have to strategically manage your resources such as your ammo and your healing abilities and your inventory space, key items, but you also have to manage your only safety net, how far back you go when you get hit for the final time. This game is incredibly replayable too, with 4 different scenarios, playing as 2 different characters. This game begs you to keep coming back to it, and so that's why I did. I'd played it for the first time at the end of 2023, and I thought I'd return to it because I did really miss Leon, I mean the game. I also never played as Leon before and opted to play as Claire first, and I'm glad I eventually came back to play as him. I found his version of the game to be much cooler, which I'll definitely delve into more later on. They nailed down the zombie movement. It's lanky and unpredictable. Their movements make it hard to hit them as they make their way over to you. Sometimes they'll slowly walk towards you, other times they'll almost be jogging, and most times it's a mix of both, so not only is it hard to hit them, but there's no telling how long it'll take before they reach you to grab a bite. The zombies act like zombies in this game, but it's not some zombie horde that you mow down. No, each zombie is a genuine threat and a real obstacle. Sometimes there's a zombie between you and the room you're trying to get to, and the only way to get to that room is through the zombie, except when you shoot at it, it just does not go down. And you run out of ammo, and now you need to really think outside of the box on how to move past it. The combat is definitely a huge highlight of this game, especially later when you encounter this terrifying plant zombie variant that moves even more unpredictably, and to make matters worse, they get back up quite a lot. Ammo's incredibly scarce, always, especially on hardcore. This really sucks, in a good way. You'll find yourself carefully making every shot count, wincing when you inevitably miss a shot due to your own impatience or the zombie's unpredictable drunken limping animation. A lot of the game's charm also comes from how alive everything feels, despite everything being dead. The animations are incredible. If you kill a zombie in front of you, it might fall onto you and you'll push it off of your body as it goes limp on top of you. The character you play just feels alive as you move around the police station solving puzzles, and the puzzles are really clever and fun too. I found that most of the time I had at least a tiny idea of where to go and what to do. It's also fun to backtrack through the building to find extra ammo, healing items, and upgrades. Funny enough, all of these amazing features only make up pretty much half of what makes this game one of my favorite horror games on the market. The other half, well, if you haven't played the game yet, I implore you skip ahead, since ideally I want you to pick this game up and figure out this incredible feature for yourself, since it is a major spoiler. You've got a couple seconds before I just continue talking about what it is. Awesome, okay, so yeah, let's talk about this dude. This is basically the thing that won me over with this game. An enemy that you can't kill, whose menacing footsteps you can hear constantly throughout the entire establishment, that tracks you no matter where you are, making certain previous areas of the game that were once deemed safe now dangerous. There's very few places to hide in the police station as it is, and this thing will follow you into the worst of predicaments. Forgot to dispatch of some zombies earlier? Too bad. If they grab you, this guy will kindly wait right next to you to sucker punch you dead. The game sometimes even puts you into dead ends with this dude just waiting on the other side of a door, forcing you to go out of your way to cleverly get around him. I wish I found out that you can actually stop him if you shoot him enough times. When I found this out, I was delighted to know that it buys you about a minute of time. In this game, that's more than enough to build some good distance between you and him. He was so incredibly threatening the first time through that I actually had to record my reaction. This is my favorite part of the game, but why, if it terrifies me so much? I think it's because of a lot of things. Up until that point, the scariest thing you'd ever fight are the lickers, incredibly fast, lanky enemies that lunge at you. They cannot see, they can only hear. Oh, why did I do that, you idiot? It hurt me. They're more so jump scare bait than anything, and jump scares, as we know, are the cheapest type of horror. I'm gonna take my headphones off and just run through. I don't give a shit. Taking my headphones off. I'm not even fucking around anymore. I think I did it. Just had to take my headphones off. That's it. That's it. Like I didn't want to hear it screaming. That's it. I gotta run. This guy is a whole other type of horror, one that sticks with you, knowing something is looking for nothing but you in this establishment. You're not in its territory or anything. It isn't there for some missing documents that the mysterious people that created it need or something. It wants you, and it is chasing you because it wants to kill you. That is ultimately its purpose. The tyrant's 9-foot-tall trench coat figure doesn't even run after you. It simply walks, knowing that you'll bury yourself into a corner you can't back out from, or that you'll run into something else that'll slow you down along the way. Playing the game for the first time on hardcore didn't help much with making me feel comfortable at all, getting chased by this thing. I'd stockpiled on ink ribbons so I could save a couple times, but all of them were gone basically halfway into this section of the game, since I would panic, find a safe room, save, and then continue panicking some more. The best way to describe how this part of the game feels is like running up the stairs in the dark and convincing yourself there's a monster about to grab you if you don't go up fast enough. Because of this section alone, this game goes from being a great horror game to a phenomenal one. This was such a shocking part of the game that I felt reluctant to play Resident Evil 4 Remake if it didn't have a similar tyrant-like enemy. Spoiler alert, I played it anyway and loved it just as much as Resident Evil 2, and we'll definitely delve into that more next month, since I haven't played through the entire thing yet and I'd want to talk about it when I have more things to say about it. Even though I think the tyrant was a standout portion of the game, the other things I mentioned before are also what make this game truly a special horror experience, one that everyone who is alright with a little bit of poop in their pants should definitely try. I was not planning on playing this game anytime soon. However, recently I saw half a video about Dragon's Dogma 2 by PunkDuck that explains that the game is hiding something under the hood. Before seeing this video, I was very sad to see that Dragon's Dogma 2 is considered a clunky mid-game, and I was just gonna eventually get to Dark Arisen maybe a couple years from now, but this video, while I may not have watched the whole thing, managed to deeply convince me to give the second game a try, but if I play the second one first, I might never play the first one, so I began with Dark Arisen. At first, I didn't trust that I would enjoy this game, but I kept coming back to it since I knew that this game is huge and that it has a great amount of content that I haven't gotten to. Eventually, I realized that this game's fast travel system is tedious and expensive, while the journey, moving from point A to point B, is what I grew to enjoy the most. Just moving along a road and finding enemies along the way to fight and get level ups from, it just feels immersive, and the game doesn't even try to be exciting for every second of it. Sometimes when you're walking from one place to another in the real world, it can be boring. The way I quell that boredom in the real world is by paying attention to the things around me, the trees, the leaves, and grass on the ground, the path before me, and even paying attention to the mind, what I think will happen along my journey, what I think will happen when I reach my destination, what my destination will lead to afterwards. I found myself in the same place with Dragon's Dogma. If you don't like to be bored and prefer games that are constantly exciting you with extrinsic things like constant objectives, combat, and active decision-making, this game might not be for you. If you treat this game, however, as you would another life to live, it instantly becomes more enjoyable. I feel like more open-world games should try experimenting with no fast travel. Imagine playing games like Tears of the Kingdom, except when you fall into the depths, your only way back out is to ascend at one of the rare ascension spots found near points of interest. I've tried playing like this, and I encountered enough enemies on my path to have up times and down times of reaching light route after light route. And while it would probably suck in the depths, since there's almost nothing to see down there, it could be a fully expanded formula with hundreds of permutations of random events that can be placed on the player's path, based on player choices, their stats, and of course RNG. If the player is going from two places they've already been to and they take the road, why not have an ambush waiting for them disguised as a caravan that broke down? Or if they're on horseback riding through the woods, why not have horseback bowmen that ambush them there? Forget ambushes. If a player is carrying important cargo on horseback riding on the main path, what if a bridge broke down along their path at random and the player has to fix it or find another way across via a detour through a dark forest? There could be many possibilities and permutations so that players don't feel like they need to fast travel and instead allow themselves to live in the moment, never missing what happens after it would have faded to black and the characters would have been just transported to the place you wanted them to go to. With good game design and good incentive, players would be more keen on interacting with games like Dragon's Dogma, games that could refine the no fast travel formula and make it truly special. The environment is incredibly captivating for its age, and although the human faces are in that uncanny valley era of graphics, the different areas you will be walking through are genuinely that good looking, even on older hardware. I love to go off the beaten path and explore as much of the map as I can because I want to see what it looks like when I take the side roads. The dialogue animations are unfortunately very stiff, lips never line up with the words properly, and the dialogue is something I usually skipped since I could just read it quicker than they say it. It's almost a decade and a half old game, so I don't look at it and think too much of it. It's got a lot of those things that make it a 2010s game rather than one of those games that you look at and go, that's a timeless classic. But man, I'd be lying if I said I don't enjoy this game. This game's biggest gimmick is the pawn system. If you've heard of Dragon's Dogma, you've probably heard of the pawn system. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a companion system that allows you to recruit members of your team that you can switch out on a whim. I thought originally that all pawns that I find will be catered to my low level and stats and that I'll be able to level them up alongside me. However, I soon realized that it's a bit weirder than that. Most pawns that you recruit are made by other players as far as I understand, and they all have different things that they're good at. Some mages have healing spells, others have fire spells, some have both, and some have neither. Each of the pawns I've encountered were made and upgraded by other players that the pawn belongs to. You can hire 2 player-made pawns to your group, and 1 pawn is your dedicated one. The one that players can hire off of you, I'm guessing. I don't know. This one levels up with you, and while you can change the armor and weapons of other pawns, changing their equipment if they aren't yours will tell you to gift the equipment to the pawn owner, and this is mandatory, meaning the game does the unexpected thing of urging you to level up your own personal pawn and change their equipment out all the time, while your 2 other pawns can and should be switched out constantly for new ones, since they don't scale to your level as you play the game. Now, this might sound confusing, but luckily the game reminds you of this in every way it can. One thing I definitely hate is the equipment load, but same as many other mechanics baked into this game, it is meant to be there to entice players to keep track of their inventory, be wary of what they pick up, and craft things to combine items and lose some of that extra weight. It's not like Skyrim where you're holding on to like 6 silver ingots and then all of a sudden you're unable to move and don't know what to drop, since everything sort of looks like something you want or need in the long term. No, you just slightly get slower depending on how many items you're carrying past certain thresholds. You will be spending a sizable amount of Dragon's Dogma just crafting things and looking at your inventory. It does disrupt gameplay sometimes, since I find myself looking at the inventory trying to see what items do what, so I can cure certain status effects, or heal myself up, or delegate resources to my pawns so they can hold some of my inventory. And I think this is actually super smart, since you effectively quadruple the size of your inventory. There's also a crafting system, as I offhandedly mentioned. It's very simple. You take 2 items and combine them to make 1 item. I found myself crafting items and engaging with the system naturally when I would get too heavy to run fast, since combining items usually lessens your overall inventory load. I like picking up objects all the time and trying to find their applications, and I found some really nice ways to get rid of certain negative status effects, and have some good healing items for whenever I'm fighting enemies I should definitely be running from. All in all, Dragon's Dogma is a pretty difficult and complicated game, with some design elements that seem like they work against making a 100% exciting experience, but it's when I began interacting with every element of this game that I truly understood how to play it and thoroughly enjoy playing it. I definitely recommend it if you're looking for a new RPG game to play with deep mechanics that are well fleshed out. Oh, and if you're curious about Dragon's Dogma 2. I think I made the right choice playing the first one, since I could be engrossed in a world that I can come back to in the second game, comfortable with the controls and systems that the series is known for. Midway through this month, I think I decided to finally give up playing No Man's Sky every single day. I really enjoyed my time with this game last month, and it's good that I put this game right after Dragon's Dogma, since No Man's Sky is definitely one of those games about enjoying the journey and not so much the destination. The reason I'm throwing in the towel now is that I think I've experienced all I've wanted to experience with this game. My goal was never to finish it, since I want to come back to it someday in the future, maybe even soon, and just play around with it again until I eventually finish it, hopefully. Maybe next time I'll play on the same file and do something wacky like build a base on a gas giant or something. Maybe a nice underwater base, who knows. All I know is that this game has had its 1-month phase in my life, and it's time to move on to new games that are waiting in my backlog. I doubt I'll have much to say about it until a bit later, but if you're on the fence about getting this game, go and buy it immediately. It's definitely earned its place as a marvelous and one-of-a-kind experience. So I finally decided to look further into the discourse surrounding Risk of Rain 2's newest DLC, Seekers of the Storm. Here are my findings. According to my research through Steam community forums, game journals, and general online discourse, the new Seekers of the Storm content is supposedly just not cutting it. The new survivors that they added into the game felt underpowered and incomplete, with one of the characters having a reviving mechanic that only works in co-op, which makes the character very unappealing compared to the characters introduced thus far. They introduced new items and equipment, but they were poorly balanced and buggy to the point where they were more debuffs than buffs. The DLC also introduced some really annoying enemy variants that reflected damage with feedback so non-existent that runs would end before players even saw their health go down. Other enemy variants had crazy high health, which sucks since the game revolves around spending the least amount of time in each level due to the time equals difficulty mechanic. Having given the game more time, I definitely share the sentiment that I tend to die without knowing why more often than I should, and I've seen firsthand how needlessly punishing and, quite frankly, uninspired the new enemy variants are, especially the ones that have like double health. Some of the new content apparently only appears on looped runs, which I don't get too often myself, meaning others also rarely got to experience this new content. The Artifact of Rebirth is another new addition that removed some of the roguelike elements of the game by allowing some progress to carry over between runs, which is like a big no-no, like excuse me. One of the biggest issues was a huge bug that tied game mechanics to frame rate, which made gameplay weird, clunky, and unpredictable. I didn't notice last month how big these problems actually were, since I was too busy enjoying the base game content. I didn't know enough to really look into this stuff. But it intrigued me that apparently their new updates are not finished yet. Yes, I thought that they had long since fixed the issues, but it appears that as of a couple weeks ago, they only fixed about 2/3 of the issues that they only promised to fix, which at this point, we don't actually know if they plan on fixing every individual issue, or if this roadmap is the extent of what we're getting reworks for. Players also spoke about enemies phasing through solid terrain not happening before. This is something I've experienced myself, but I thought it was one of those little whatever bugs that you see and ignore. Another issue I experienced is dying on the first stage constantly, and wondering if by beating the game I had permanently changed my game's difficulty since the game thinks I'm to be more challenged from here on or something. But no. Another thing I've seen personally from comments on Steam is that people are also getting completely bombarded with enemies in the first level, losing to an overcrowded mess of enemies. After the second update was released, I've yet to see this again, but I'm not entirely sure if it was patched or if I'm just getting lucky. I also noticed that the railgunner just doesn't seem to fit with all the other survivors that came before it, doing incredible amounts of damage with the sniper attack, making the first stage a complete cakewalk. It's such a shame that this is what happened to the game. It definitely rubs me the wrong way and makes it a more unappealing experience to me overall, and that also really sucks because I truly love this game. I hope that Gearbox can fix these bugs and make their DLC a more enjoyable experience overall, and I hope it happens sooner rather than later. Too bad we had to end on such a sad note, because other than that, I think this wraps up the month of March. This time around, I genuinely had so much to talk about, and with such great detail. I'm always very grateful for the support, and if you're new around here and want to see more, you know exactly what to do. There's a subscribe button right there. I can't wait to see you all again in April, when I hopefully have some more awesome game recommendations for you all, with a side of Yappuccino. I'd like to hear your thoughts on making longer form video essays that you could all study or fall asleep to. I also want to hear what games you would want me to play, so leave them in the comments if you'd like for me to take a look at something and put it on my list. As always, take care of yourself, and don't forget to brush your teeth.